In this video, it sounds like a 2CV, but it isn't a 2CV. It is a Citroën Visa Special. Here we go, it's a Citroën Visa, 1982 or 1983. It's a facelifted version. It hasn't got the original pug nose. This is the 1980s refresh of Visa. And the Visa, a very interesting car, really. It was meant to be perhaps a replacement for the 2CV, never quite managed to be that, so ended up slotting in as a slightly larger Super Mini. The original concept, as I've said before in other videos, is what went to Romania to become the Alt-Cit, sold as the Citroen Axle in some markets. But when Peugeot took Citroen over, they took one look at that Alt-Cit design and said, no, this is no good. So what Peugeot did was restrict Citroen. They said you can have some of the design elements, but we want a car that's more conventional. So the underpinnings are almost entirely Peugeot 104. It's a much more conventional car than Citroen would have liked. The smaller engine available was the 652cc air-cooled flat twin. That's an enlarged 2CV engine, which we'll take a look at in a moment. But you could also get the full range of Citroen suitcase engines. The four-cylinder slant forward, the engine canted right back. So it's almost flat on its side under the engine bay. And later on, you could also get the XUD diesel engine. That proved very popular as well, very economical little car. But I mean, as you can see, the styling is still pretty unusual. These distinctive headlamp indicator units and the black trim around, and of course it was always available as a van version as well. And yeah, I have test driven one of those if you want to go and have a look. Single wiper because Citroen quirkiness, and yeah, a 5-door hatchback for much practicality. Let's take a peek inside, because the world gets very strange in here, because we've got one of Citroen's best dashboards. Before we jump aboard, we'll just take in the delightful seats, very soft, very comfortable, very French. No head restraints, because we are in base model territory here, which sadly also means no rear wiper. Disappoint. But nonetheless, we shall jump aboard and yeah, take in the majesty of the dashboard. Just move that little bit of leaf away there. So yeah, tiny little speedometer tucked away in here, along with the word Citroen. You would get a rev counter in sportier models, or maybe a clock, but this is base model territory, nothing available here. Single spoke steering wheel and pedal box, pretty familiar to 2CVers, although the clutch is tucked a bit out of the way. It's not quite as close. So let's take in the crazy dashboard. There are switches in the middle here, which you have to operate through the steering wheel, but at least they're quite easy to get at. We've got a 2-speed heater fan. That's for testing the brake fluid light. If I put the ignition on, there we go, and that should light up. Yeah, so if that lights up while you're driving along, that means your brake fluid level has dropped. All that button does is test that bulb. Hazard lights, oh yes, a proper old school flasher cam relay like 2CV. Fog light, required by law at this stage, and heated rear window, so you know, you get some luxury. And blanking plugs ahoy down here, fake switches, and manual choke control, very easy to operate. We've got adjustable headlamps on a control down here. Just turn that off. We've got heater controls over this side, but the stickers come off, so I don't know what any of that makes happen. And that should make it hotter, but in fact isn't. So I think something is amiss there. It's quite chilly this morning. I shouldn't have worn shorts. Over this side, it's straight out of a GSA. This rotating dial crazy setup. So to operate wipers, you rotate, and there's an intermittent setting, I believe. Wash is pushed down at the top. Indicators are operated thusly, and lights at the bottom here. And you switch to main beam with this little paddle at the bottom. So that's main beam on, That's main beam off. You can't really see them light up very well in these conditions. So yes, so much of the switchgear is kind of within fingertip control, or at least pretty close to it. I mean, if you're driving along resting with your hand on the wheel, you can operate the buttons as you see fit. But yes, the idea is that you can do all these things without having to take your hand off the wheel. So it's, yeah, all very good. Here in the middle, there's some additional controls. We've got, I think this feeds the rear via that flap there, so it blows between the seats. We've got the man with his hat and the lovely shoes. That control was replicated all the way through to C15s. But yeah, fresh air to the face is very possible via these vents, and by heck does it come through with some force. I quite like the door release and handle all integrated in one, and of course we've got keep fit windows, which are quite good. But a very nice driving position. It's very central. All the controls are straight ahead of you, unlike say in a Citroen AX. And while you do get some unswept area with the single wiper, you sit quite low, so I'm looking straight out of what is swept very well. What I will say is a downside on these single wiper Citroens is they bring all the water here in front of you, and then the wiper goes away again, and at speed the water will then go up the windscreen. So that's not such a good design. But let's just give it some action for you. Wash and wipe. There you go. No triangle of doom here. You cannot have a triangle of doom with one wiper. Let's have a nose at the bonnet. The bonnet release is carefully hidden down here. And we'll get out and have a nose. Nice little look at the engineering in that. That's quite nice. That locks in and stops it falling on your head. There is an engine in here somewhere, but mostly there is spare wheel. So 652cc, about 35 brake horsepower. That is an upgrade on the 2CV. It also has electronic ignition control. Citroen claim it was kind of one of the first to have that, but I'm pretty sure some Jaguars had that beforehand. The Lucas Opus, complete nightmare. And just to the cooling fan down there, I think these models must have come with a grille blind, surely, so you could restrict the airflow for winter. But dinky little heat exchangers, a bit of a bigger one there, so you get cabin heat in theory. I suspect there's some control cables not at their best. But yeah, there's one cylinder, other cylinder over here. All looks very familiar to a 2CV, although there are some subtle differences. Like we've got a stop solenoid on the carburettor by the look of it. We also managed to cram the jack and the starting handle. Can you use it as a starting handle? No, I don't think you're going to have access to get in as the starting handle. So that's just your to operate the jack, and yeah. That's about it really. Get your wheel nuts undone. Like, no, I'm sure what that is. Oh, that. See, that has got the look of a starter dog on it. That's quite intriguing. But yeah, lots of wax around here, which is clearly why this car has survived. So yeah, alternator is very accessible. Doing the rocker covers to do the valve clearances, that looks more of an issue, to be honest. It looks all very tight in there. Not much room to play with. Here in the back, it's a little claustrophobic in terms of leg room. Sorry, knees alert. But plenty of headroom going on. And the main issue is it's very tinny back here. There doesn't seem to be a load cover. There's no trim over these panels at the back. So when you close the door, it's all very, very metallic. And that also now allows a fair amount of rear load noise. Load noise? No, just rear noise generally. It's... yeah, a parcel shelf would make it a lot more refined. Let's go and have a quick nose at the boot. I mean, it's there, but we'll go and look at it anyway. Coming round to the rear, we've got, you know, one strut to hold up the tailgate, but it seems to work, and quite a large boot. The only downside being that this loading sill is quite high, but practicality can be increased. I mean, we've got lots of tinny metal, but the lots of space here because it doesn't have the spare wheel here. The spare wheel lives at the front. Visa GTI, no room in the engine bay because of all the fuel injection gubbins. So yeah, the spare goes in the back and removes all of your rear space. Practicality abounds. If I pull that, I think we can then, oh, may pull it again. There we go, clunk. There we can roll that back. That's how simple that is. Look, it's just a tie with a clip. And then if we rock that switch and fold down the rear, so that increases load space considerably. A very practical little hatchback. Right, we should probably set about the business of going for a drive. Before we do, gear change. It's very clunky, very mechanical. And that's not fifth, that's reverse. It's a 4-speed gearbox, synchromesh on all forward gears. Yeah, very like a GSA. It's not too bad to use, but yeah, it really does clonk about a bit. It's not very refined. I would prefer the push-pull of a 2CV gear lever, but alas, that was never an option on a Visa. So I shall fire the engine into life. And there we go. It's a very refined sound to a 2CV. It sounds like a 2CV engine, but oh so far away. So yeah, a very different driving experience with an engine I'm very familiar with. And we'll just watch the horse go past, and we'll let them get out of the way first. Perhaps we won't go in that direction. But yeah, driving position as discussed, everything falls nicely to hand, control-wise. And it's quite stuffy at the moment, but once we're on the move, these vents will start flowing plenty of fresh air at us, so it will be very welcome. But yeah, 39,840 miles on the clock, so this is a barely used gem, really. Indicate left. The indicators don't self-cancel, which is perfect. But you have to use all of the revs, like a 2CV. If you want to make progress, you've got to work for it. But yeah, a very challenging road in terms of road surface, and the ride isn't, it's not perfect Citroen. It is a little bit too bouncy, but nonetheless, it's not too bad. It shrugs off the worst of the bumps. Currently doing about 50 miles an hour. It's about 80 kilometers an hour. Can we get to 60 before the bend? Yes. And then the non-servo disc drum brakes do a good job of taking the speed off, and you can really chuck it into the bends. Despite skinny little tyres. But yeah, she's not a performance machine. Although this engine has 36 pound-foot of torque, which may not sound a lot, but to a 2CV owner, it's a fair amount. So 35 brake horsepower, 36 pound-foot of torque, compared to 29 of a standard 2CV engine. Which is why quite a few of these engines did get fitted to 2CVs. But my own 2CV now has a 652 conversion, not a Visa engine, an aftermarket conversion. So yeah, I'm used to that slightly better torque. It's the mid-range torque that really is improved fairly substantially. Oh, that junction's come up on us quickly. I'll select first. It's slightly odd hearing that 2CV soundtrack in something that isn't a 2CV. They also fitted the engine to the Peugeot 104 in the form of the Citroën LN. Although the Citroën LN could also be specified with Peugeot's engines. Slightly odd, the LN, given the fact they already had the Visa, but the LN a little bit smaller. So with the 2CV, the Diane, the Ami, the LN and the Visa, in the 1970s, Citroën really did have the small car market sewn up. Options are plenty. There's loads of body roll, as you might expect from a Citroën. But yeah, as a 2CV owner, I don't find that alarming. But yeah, my foot is on the floor at the moment, mild hill and just nothing. Because this must be heavier than a 2CV. And the gearing is also a little bit taller, I think, as well. But you know, we're doing 60 at the moment, and yeah, it's not too noisy. There's a fair bit of noise, road noise coming through from the back because there is no parcel shelf. You didn't get that on a special, which seems unnecessarily harsh, to be honest. Once you slow down to village speeds, it's fine, and the little engine pulls very well. It's a twin choke Solex, like on a 2CV. But yeah, with this slightly more advanced ignition, as in fully electronic, not as in the timing's adjusted, it does seem to pull very well at low revs in a way 2CV engines don't always. I will say the heater is not brilliant. It works best when you're travelling at great speed, much like a 2CV, even though I've got my 2-speed blower fan there. Yeah, this is a really charming little car. It's not hugely powerful, but it's fast enough in real-world conditions, especially when you're stuck behind a Ford Fusion. I'm not actually sure when they stopped making the twin-cylinder Visas. They certainly never made a van version with a twin-cylinder engine, perhaps unsurprisingly. You're going to struggle to carry much weight around. But the later Visa, as you'll see in my C15 video, went for a very conventional dashboard with controls lifted straight out of the Citroën BX. I just love this. Once you get your head around it, it works so well. Well, in what is perhaps the least surprising conclusion ever, I really like the Citroën Visa Spécial. Yeah, it manages to combine some of the charm of the 2CV with things like serenity and yeah, a bit more refinement. It's amazing how refined the same engine sounds once you add some sound deadening, for instance, is an idea. Maybe I'll do that with my 2CV. Yeah, if you hadn't noticed, I am a 2CV owner. It is official, so yeah, I'm going to be fairly biased on this one. But yeah, that's a lovely little car. I really wish I'd owned a Visa before they'd all vanished, because they have all gone. They were very popular little workhorses, and sadly most of them were just run into the ground. So lovely to see this really well preserved example. It's not in perfect minty fresh condition, but that's fine with me. It feels very honest, very real somehow, unrestored, beautiful. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, and I shall see you in a future video. Farewell.